and the best thing that Houston Texans fans could have had happen to them in the NFL. Bill O'Brien, the coach, has been fired. Bill O'Brien, the GM, has been fired as well, but they didn't celebrate that particular role on Twitter when they thanked him. Look, since being 24-0 up against Kansas City in January, they've lost 5 straight. They've conceded 35 points a game. Yes, they have had a ridiculously tough schedule in that time, but with also the criticism of what he's done in the front office as well. It might be early, but it feels like it's inevitable.
Yeah, I mean, yes. Calling for this for
Matthew, you used to defend Bill O'Brien as the coach, at least.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, he did, I think, a very good job in the early years with bad quarterbacks. Now, you could argue that the problem all along was his ability to evaluate these players. The Brock Osweiler move was very much driven by Bill O'Brien, and that didn't work out. And then, I think this is a failure, a colossal failure in management. Now, understandable to a degree in that the principal owner of the team has passed away in the not too distant past, but ultimately there is no way he should ever have been allowed to have personnel control, and that really is what the disaster has been here. It's been comical mismanagement of that side of things since he's been allowed to do it, and for them to allow him to make some of the decisions he's made, which, let's be honest, were out there, and then get rid of him 4 games into a season a year later is just astonishingly bad. And it's really troubling, actually, to see where they go from here. They've got a guy who was the Patriots' character coach. He was the pastor, who is somehow running football operations. And from what I can tell, has very much engineered himself into that situation. So if he's going to be running the show in the future, I really fear for what it looks like for that franchise, and ultimately for Deshaun Watson, who I think we all love and would like to see the best for him.
Everyone in Houston gets to know that Jesus is now at the wheel, which surely means an improvement from the 0-4 record. You mentioned the GM decisions, the front office decisions, and obviously the DeAndre Hopkins trade was hugely derided this summer. But I think potentially even more interesting to me, Simon, is that Laramie Tunsil trade, which you could argue Laramie Tunsil is a top 5 left tackle in the NFL, and yet Deshaun Watson's still getting pressured on 30% of dropbacks. He's got the highest sack percentage based on dropbacks in the entire NFL. That's been a clear problem for 2 years. He tried to make a move to fix it. Surely we should at least applaud that he tried to do something.
But I think, O'Brien, to me, has no legs to stand on. I feel he was, so out of his depth. I thought he was out of his depth as coach, frankly, but so out of his depth as a general manager. And you look, highest payroll in football at $248 million. They're $6 million over the cap already. They traded Jadeveon Clowney and DeAndre Hopkins for essentially not a great deal. They have no first-round pick next year. They have no second-round pick. They only have 4 picks in total in 2021, and he was 54 and 52 as a head coach during his tenure, including the playoffs, with a franchise quarterback, a franchise left tackle, a number 1 wide receiver, 2, 3, if you count Whitney Merciless, fantastic defensive ends, first-round picks in the secondary. At some point, it can't just be the product that's on the field. It's got to be the way that he's coached. And I think the interesting thing that Matt said about Jack Easterby, who's the pastor made good, who was essentially, feels like he's building his own statue outside ARG Stadium at the moment because he's that important now. Very close with Josh McDaniels. Is this time that Josh McDaniels finally leaves New England? The fact that he would go to work with a friend in Houston with a quarterback like Deshaun Watson, or is this Dabo Sweeney, who's also very close? I can't for the life of me see A, why Sweeney would leave Clemson, and B, why, if he did, why he would go to any other team than the team that has Trevor Lawrence. But it throws up some interesting issues moving forwards.
The short-sightedness of the Tunsil trade is illustrated by the fact that the Dolphins are almost certainly going to end up selecting who is what I think the best left tackle prospect I've ever seen with that pick in next year's draft. Like, Penei Sewell is absolutely, with the way the quarterback situation plays out with Lawrence, Fields, and potentially 1 or 2 others, the Dolphins with their 2 picks and probably that Houston one may well be primed to select Tunsil's replacement with just one of those draft picks. And I think that's ultimately, we all love these moves because they're exciting and it's fun, but it was so short-sighted and just ludicrous for a left tackle. You know, a left tackle is a hugely important position. But as Simon says, you know, one thing I always pick out from the book is that the great teams generally have great offensive lines. Now, that is not necessarily one standout player. They're generally a great unit. And there's a difference between building a great offensive line and having a great left tackle, ultimately.